first question that I like to ask people when we do these lives is, what's bringing you joy? What's making you
Oh
smile?
God. I have no idea, to be honest, at the moment.
That's
Mm,
too.
what's bringing me joy? My dog. I mean, Ellie is amazing. She's kind of a cock block, but she's so fucking cute. If I could
How was she the cock block?
the
What'd she
camera
do?
on. Oh, I mean, she goes crazy and she will jump on the guy and hump him or just like lick him constantly. And then I'll like have to push her off and then she jumps back on and then she's shaking. She's literally shaking and panting. She's
Oh,
clearly very uncomfortable.
yeah.
Weird.
My dog just gets too hyper. I have to put him in the other room because he just wants to jump, and he thinks he's 10 pounds. He's 60 pounds.
Yeah, well,
And
she
like,
goes. And the other weird thing she does,
tell
this
me,
is so gross, but I
I
don't know.
love it.
She's like the cleanup crew. I don't know if your dog does this, but like when I finish,
God.
she like licks everything. The other day I left a bottle of lube on the bed and I was like, what the fuck is that noise? And it was Ellie chewing on the lube bottle. I think she was eating lube. I don't
That's wild. I I
I don't
would
know what
not
to
put
do
that
about
past my
that.
dog, which is why like I put everything up high and like in a thing because I feel like my dog will also do the same. He wants to sniff everything, lick everything. As soon as he sees a dick, his nose wants to go right to it, and I'm always like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't. For them it doesn't mean the same shit, so they're like, whatever,
Yeah. I
whatever.
don't know.
Um, I guess I'll give the same answer. I think what's bringing me joy is my dog trying to just like life is lifing, and I feel like having a dog who's unaware of everything is just kind of like chill and vibing and
Yeah.
wanting to love unconditionally feels like a good reminder of things. Um,
Need that.
we do need it. We do need it. The other thing I want to talk to you about, which we can dive right in, because I read your book, and we're supposed to meet up on one of our pods, and it never happened. So like, we're
Yeah.
actually trying to do this. But like, there were so many moments in that book that I was like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this and this and this and that. And one of those things was around performance anxiety because I feel like I get a lot of questions around how one navigates performance anxiety, and it's something that like I became verse in the last few years. So like starting
Congrats.
thank you so much.
That's a
Starting to
big deal.
it is it was. Or it felt like it. It felt like a nice expansion of
It's a
my
pretty big
sexual
deal.
yeah, it's a nice expansion. But I think for the first time, like, if I'm a bottom and my dick is hard or not hard, it like never really meant anything to me. But as a top, you gotta keep the thing hard. And so it's the first time that I started navigating performance anxiety. And you said something which is sex is psychological, right? And so I just really
Mhm.
want if you would
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that and like maybe dispel some of the shame people are having around their performance anxiety.
Well, like, what's the alternatives if it's not psychological? Like, what is it animalistic? Like, what is it? It's just
Right.
primitive. It's like, what
Yeah.
robotic? Like, what's of course, sex is psychological. Sex
You
starts in
say
our
it and it sounds
brains.
so normal when you say it, but I feel like it's
Mhm.
not what we're raised to think, right? Like we're raised to think it's like this feral primal thing,
Yeah.
but it is a
Well, it can
psychological.
become that, but it's anything that's even if it is feral and primal, that's still psychological.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it also comes from the pressure that it should just happen, is that people think that it's something that it should be automatic isn't necessarily psychological, but it's all psychological and it's mediated by the relational world, which is why people get anxiety during sex, after sex, if someone texts them back or not. Is that sex is relational. Even if it's with like glory hole number two, there's still an anonymous person behind said glory hole sucking your dick. So there's always a relational dynamic at play, even when you're alone. The level of confidence you can have with your body, it comes from relationships, how you learned about your body, what the world told you about your body. So, sex is always psychological, it's always relational. And then it brings up a lot of anxiety for people because of that.
Yeah. How do you move through like what is the best way to move through? I mean, there are so many different tips, but I'm so curious what your solve for performance anxiety is. If somebody's like, "Oh, I'm experiencing this in the moment,"
Yeah.
what are like I'm sure again everybody's blueprint is different, but what are some like key takeaways to support you for mitigating that?
I tell them to take pills.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
for sure.
mean, like, Google,
A
I mean, I
little
like
detail.
Cialis better, although there are some that are now Cialis and Viagra and, like, whatever other supplements and vitamins people are thinking are gonna give you a boner. I mean, and then, like, not just take a pill and let's not and never think about it again, but, like, then let's talk about it. Um, yeah, I think this is when medication is like, do
Helpful.
take it. Yeah. And a
What's
lot of
the
people are like, "I don't wanna have to take medication." I'm like, "Do you wanna have a hard dick?" Like, what do you I mean, we could talk about it and it might help. You can find a safe partner and whatever, but sometimes it's a physiological thing where, if you're standing up, it might be hard to stay hard. If you're having to, like, that's physical exertion, it can be hard to say. I mean, you could be taught. I mean, there's so many physical components of if we're talking specifically topping, have to be able to stay hard while topping. Um, your dick could get bent. That can make you lose an erection. I mean, there's a lot of things. It's
yeah, yeah.
practically an Olympic sport. So, take medication.
Having a little support. What is the way to respond to somebody who's navigating performance anxiety? I mean, obviously, I always say compassionately, but like, is there like, what is the best? Yeah, what's the way to respond if in the
What do
moment your
you
partner's having issues?
what do you need? It's okay. What can I do? What do you want? Um, let's pause. Come here. Let's kiss. I don't know, stuff like that.
Yeah, not being afraid to take a beat. Why do you think it's hard for people to take a beat or yeah, to pause?
Well, I mean, the reason for performance anxiety is in the title. It's performance anxiety. I mean, because people think they're having to perform, to do a service.
Mm.
What did you ask me? Sorry,
Well,
it's been a long day.
I was you're fine with me. And it's later for you. I'm wondering, why do you think it's hard for people to pause? Why is it hard
Oh,
to
the performance thing. That's what I was saying. It's because people think it has to be performance, like in porn, where they never see any kind of outtakes or pauses. When the reality is you have to pause every you have to pause to get into a position, to go to the bathroom, to go like pauses happen. So pause, all you need. But people, of course, have internalized one kind of script for what sex should look like, feel like, and end like, and so usually pauses. That's okay. Let's just kiss. What do you need? What can I do? Or telling somebody what you need and what they can do is usually not part of the script. Or at least not part of the script that we've grown up with, that it's just like bim bam boom, everything works, then you come.
Yeah. I was just you saying that makes me go, I was slipping from one position to another and physically, like, needed to pull out to do that, but there was a bit of shame that came for not just being able to, like, flip my partner
You're like on a
190.
pole vault. You're like at the Olympics. You're like, gotta get that gold medal. Yeah. No shame.
Literally, literally.
Pull out if you need to pull out. You can always put it back in.
Amen. I want that on a shirt. You can always put it
Yeah,
back in.
that would actually be a great shirt.
Be a great
I should
shirt.
really do some merch there. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it was and a friend of mine texted me that they were, the shame piece is such an interesting part of it too. A friend of mine texted me after giving head, I think at a bathhouse, and he was like, "I was so happy to like, suck these dicks," and then like an hour later, felt so much shame about it.
I don't
Uh,
know. Because,
and
like, because it was slutty or what?
I think so.
I
I
use
think
the
it was
word
like
slutty in a positive way, but
of course, yeah, yeah. I think so. I think it was like it's the sluttiness and then like that reckoning with indoctrination, your moral compass, and like what are the morals around this, and should I be allowed to suck all these dicks or whatever the sexual act is? You should be allowed to, absolutely.
yeah, it's a free
Um,
100. Is that what they
but
say?
like navigating that shame, how shame comes up both during sex and after sex, I feel like informs that performance anxiety. Because I would imagine, he messaged our group thread, and of course we were like, "We support you. Like, go
Yeah.
back, suck more dick." But had we not, it's like had he had that experience again, he might have shied away from it or not done it because of that shame or not been able to get hard himself. And so how like I guess my question is, how does one navigate shame? I understand like the Brene Brown of it all, but sexually, like, how do you think people can start to address and break down their shame?
Well, shame, everybody has sexual shame, firstly. Everyone's sexually repressed, everyone has sexual shame, and everyone has relational anxiety, whether they're aware of it or not. It's kind of built into how we internalize our sense of other people and our sense of ourselves. So, first, shame is normal in this world, sadly. It's also a normal emotion. So, just saying all of this to say it's okay if you feel shame.
Yeah.
Some people then start feeling shame that they feel shame, and it's like, oh God. Um, so it's totally fine. But like with anything, you have to figure out, well, what is this shame doing here? How did it get there? Who taught me this shame? What are all the sources of this? My parents, my siblings, teacher, lack of sex ed, this culture, my identity, all of the different things that fall under the umbrella, not the umbrella, whatever, all of the all of the things that create shame. Religion, big one. Um, and then you have to relearn different values that are more congruent with who you want to be. And I do think it's not like a do a spreadsheet and like move on. These values, we internalize them at such a young age that they become, a self-definition in a way, a core belief. And so, it takes a long time to unlearn them. We can know that it's okay to suck 5 dicks at the bathhouse, but still feel shame about it. That these things are so deep, it's almost like they're part of our DNA, but I don't like saying that. But
Mhm.
it takes some time. So people then shame themselves for still feeling shame. It's like, okay, no,
Yeah.
don't do that either. It takes
Yeah.
a long time. I mean, I'm a sex therapist and I sometimes still feel shame. Shame for, the opposite, not being more having more sex, even though I'm having plenty of sex. But there's always some kind of something is going to pop up as it pertains to sex, and especially with shame or anxiety. It's there, and it's sad, and it's this culture's fault, and religion, and our parents, and history, and everything. But there's a lot of meaning behind it, and a really meaningful story to write, and to move on and grow, and have lots of sex because
What's What's your ritual when you come up against as somebody who's like, I study this, I'm a sex therapist. When you come up against shame, whether it's sexual or otherwise, do you have like a ritual, like or a way that you're let me back up. I realize that I get really stressed, and one of my flaws is that I can't recognize the stress. So my body will recognize it, but I won't. And so I'm working on like how do I consciously bring awareness to my stress so that I can navigate it. I would imagine sometimes shame is the same thing where somebody might be in a shame spiral, but they're not even calling it a shame spiral because they're not even aware that that's what the thing is that they're doing. And so I'm wondering, like in your own shame, like how have you been able to bring awareness to shame? And then, like, what is your steps to dismantling it?
I'm trying to think of the last time I felt shame. Uh, I mean, I can when I'm feeling shame, I feel it like in my throat and in my chest,
Uh-huh.
and I like want a cigarette. It's there. Stress is how do you not feel your stress? I feel like when I'm stressed, I'm like, "Ugh," everything's annoying. Like,
Yeah,
uh,
I it's weird.
everyone is annoying. I'm just like, fuck everything.
I just, like, get in such a lane of, like, work that I don't feel it until, like, I get sick. It's like it's something that
Mm.
I'm constantly working on. I won't say that I'm stressed, but anybody else looking in might be like, "Oh, that it would make sense that you're stressed." But I'm not feeling it. I'm not downloading it, logically as stress. I'm just going, "Oh, I have to work, or I have these things," and I keep doing it, and then my body will break down, and that's when I'm like, "Oh, I think I'm stressed."
Mm,
So just
okay.
like, I think it's like, the mind-body connection sometimes for me with stress can be off. With sex, not so much. That I'm really able to talk about and be clear about, but the emotional stress is a little different.
It's a way to get through stress is to pretend you're not stressed.
Well, there you
Um,
go.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
coping.
Yeah,
Adapting. What do I do with my shame? I don't know. I tell myself it's okay. That that there's
yeah.
really nothing to be ashamed about. And then I still feel the shame, and then I just kind of force myself not to think about it. Um, I know that sounds overly simplistic, but I'm fully aware that like I don't need to go to an orgy and that it's okay if I don't want to go to an orgy. But when I open Sniffies and I see that there's like 15 orgies and then I see like five friends that I know are going and I'm like and or someone invited me to a sex party or an orgy the other day and I was like, "Oh, this just seems so overwhelming." And then I'm like, "Oh, but you should want to go to these orgies." And I'm like, "Ugh, I don't, but I don't want to." And so then I'm just like,
Mhm.
it's fine. Like I don't like I have plenty of sex. I don't need to do these things to meet some gay criteria of a sexual successful whatever. But I still feel a little bit of like, oh, I'm not good enough like these other gays who go to these parties and just want to like fuck 10 guys at the same time. And then I just force myself not to think about it anymore because I know that it's fine and that it's okay. I mean, it's so like I've also unpacked a lot of this stuff in therapy for 30 years, so 25 years. I don't know how old I am anymore. So I mean, it's not like I haven't worked through these things, but it's just to say that it's, I do a lot of repression, I guess. No, it's not repression. No, I mean, it's
No.
just like the amount of time I can only spend a certain amount of time berating myself for something that I know is completely incongruent with who I am. If I don't want to go to an orgy, okay. I mean, like, I can't let myself, so I stop myself from going down the road of I should want to do, whatever.
Yeah, what you're saying actually reminds me of, like, sometimes when I get stoned and I can get doesn't happen often, but I can, like, start to spiral about something, and then I have to remind myself, "Hey, babe, I think you're just stoned, and, like, this thing actually doesn't quite matter, like, the way that you're fixating on it," and it feels like it's something same with shame, like, when you know what your criteria is as opposed to whatever we think the gay cat criteria is or the woman criteria is or the whatever it is, when you know what your criteria is, you might still spiral off, but then if you're able to kinda come back to it and go, "Hey, babe, I think you're just in a shame spiral, and it's not actually um, you don't have to actually it's not actually real, you know what I'm saying? It's not like, it's not for you, might actually interrupt it, might actually be the way to tackle it. Because it's like once you know what you're about, you can still feel shame about the other things, but if you can remind yourself that that's not what you want anyway, then I think maybe it softens. I'm working this out
Yeah.
in real time, see it
No,
much.
no, it's true. I mean, the other part is shame's a relational product. Shame is a relational dynamic again. And so so for me, it comes feeling like I'm not good enough or like I'm like someone else is better than me or that I don't have enough value or that I won't have value if I'm not as hypersexual as somebody else or whatever. And that where does that go back? That goes to my father. Thank you, Dad.
Yeah,
And my mother and my three brothers and the world I grew up in and whatever. This core belief of being gay and not good enough and not looking good enough. It's a whole constellation of relational trauma is what's underneath shame. So, I mean, I'm aware of all of that. I've had the privilege to be in therapy for so long, and I'm a therapist talking through this with people every day. So it's like I get my own free therapy just by being a therapist. So, like, not a lot of people have that experience, which is really ridiculous. We should all be assigned to therapists like at birth and or whatever. But we also have to understand what's underneath shame, not just dismiss it. So I don't want to just say like, just tell yourself, forget it. It's not a big
sure,
deal.
sure.
No, it is a big deal. And so understand the relational trauma that's really informing your shame, because it's there. And if you don't know it, look for it because you'll find something. Um, and then like the practical side of it is to try to limit the time you spend in those spirals if possible. And if you can't, then for sure there's something there to look at for yourself. When you just kind of keep coming back to this place of I'm bad, I'm not good enough because of fill in whatever the blank is. There's really something there, your little child, your early trauma, whatever, that's saying, please pay attention to me. So the shame isn't necessarily about the thing you feel shameful about. It's really
Mm.
about the trauma that's underneath it. So you do have to go on a little bit of a mission to find that out too.
When you're finding sorry, that'll when you're finding a therapist, because 'cause I'm like, you just said, like, I've been in therapy, I am a therapist, like, you have all these tools that kind of help you address this thing that could otherwise be overwhelming. So I'm thinking about somebody who maybe, doesn't have a relationship to therapy at all, and they're wanting to step into this work, of, like, unpacking their shame and figuring out what's underneath. Um, if they're looking for a therapist, what do you think is like the I guess either the questions to be asking to find the right person, or yeah, maybe that's where I'll start. Like, what do you think this person should be asking or looking for in either therapy or in a book or in, a podcast, like if they're looking to start to address their shame?
Yeah, do all the things. Books, podcasts, Substacks.
Substacks? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like dating. I mean, you have to know what you want, which is someone that's affirming, maybe someone that's relatable. I know a lot of people, they're looking for similarities. That what makes you feel safe, then sure. It's going to be personal, so it's something different for everyone. I think it's less about how. I mean, I think there's so many. It's so hard. There's so many barriers to finding a therapist, internal and external. Um, I mean, if you're looking specifically for a therapist, I think look for a sex therapist. I'm biased because I'm a sex therapist, but I know that a lot of therapists don't have additional training or knowledge or comfort in talking about sex, um, or may not go down that road as soon as a sex therapist may. So I would say look for a sex therapist, which is a really great filter tool when you're looking for a therapist in a database when there's 5,000 near you.
Yes.
Like how the fuck am I supposed to navigate this? Um, yeah, so I look for one that has some kind of specialization in sex. I kind of often look for queer therapists. And that's a good place to start. ASECT is the sex certification um, place, organization, whatever. You
Yeah.
can go to their website, and then they have a list of all the therapists. I think on like Psychology Today, you can do it. You can just do a Google search: sex therapists, gay sex therapists, queer sex therapists. Um,
And then finding that person who, like you said, dating, it feels aligned with.
yeah,
I had somebody tell me that they had a therapist, but their therapist was so hot, they, like, wouldn't tell them the truth. And I just was like, "That's
well,
you
that's
probably shouldn't be with that therapist, love."
yeah,
Um,
that's not helpful. Or
so
maybe they should get a hot
yeah.
therapist and tell them the truth. Maybe that's something they need to do.
Yeah, I
Stop
guess,
withholding
but,
from
like,
hot people. Work through your issues.
whatever it is, but, like, whoever it is, you gotta be telling the truth. You gotta, like, feel
Yeah,
like
I
you can
mean, that's just like lighting your money on fire.
literally, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what are they doing? Get an uglier
yeah.
therapist, quick.
Mhm. Yeah, they definitely needed a new therapist, and thankfully, I think they got one. I have another question about your book. What I was asked curious, like, what does clingy mean to you? I think you were talking about being clingy, and so I wanted you to tell me what that means to you.
Well, what it means to me is not what it means to most people. Clingy, I think when we're talking about it, we think of like exaggerated bids for connection and attention that are boundaryless, which I think, it could be. But I think oftentimes the people that are being labeled clingy are being labeled clingy by people who are avoidant, unavailable, or unable to fulfill the said clingy person's needs. So,
Mm,
like, unless it is a label, I mean, when we think about clingy, we think about labeling people as clingy. And usually that's a shitty thing to do in general, regardless of what the label is. But it's also really biased. So I don't really even use the word clingy. I just use the word clingy to tell people to stop calling people clingy.
mm. Fair,
Because it's kind of like saying how much sex is too much sex. Like who says? Like
right.
who says? Me? I don't know. No one can say what number is too much. I don't know if this is the right analogy, but who says what's too clingy? I mean, someone could be texting somebody 30 times a day and the person could be like, oh, more, I love all the texts. Or you could have somebody else that's like, Jesus Christ, this is too much. So it's really based on who is giving and receiving that then that label gets doled out. But I think usually, again, we think of clingy, we think of over exaggerated, boundaryless, pursue, pursue, pursue.
Yeah.
But that is just, again, I would rephrase that as just relational anxiety, um, attachment anxiety. Clingy feels just like mean to me.
Yeah.
It's like calling someone needy. It's mean. It's like,
What is like? I mean, so like I have a partner who we use the term clingy, but like in a positive way. It's like I'm
great.
gonna be clingy this
Reclaim
weekend.
the word.
Reclaim the word. It's like I'm gonna be clingy this
Yeah.
weekend. It's like,
Love
oh
your
please, I
power.
love when you're clingy.
Yeah.
But I guess there is that there is a conversation that I'm seeing going around about like, you're not too needy, they just can't meet your needs, or you're just asking the wrong person or whatever it is. And I'm
Yeah.
so curious is like, I mean, you might not have the answer, but I'll just ask it because whatever, it's imperfect. I'm so curious as to when a person realizes or how they can realize that like it's not you, it's them. That like maybe there's a mismatch in attachments here. Because I think the tendency is to fix yourself. The tendency is to shrink. The tendency is to box it in and try and adjust. But how do you I don't know, how do you wake yourself up to being like, "Oh, I don't need to do that. Like, this is maybe not about me." Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's just mildly triggering. No, 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 it actually is. Yeah, I mean, the tendency is to fix ourselves or to make somebody else fix themselves or both. Um, and so, eh, I think so often it's like well, it's the wrong person. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, whatever the dynamic is, there's something for each person in that dynamic to learn. And the question becomes less about are they right or wrong, and more about can you learn? Can you make that work?
Mm.
And some people are willing to do the work to make it work, and some people are not. So I don't think this kind of like you're not too much, whatever it is. You're not. What is it? What's this the line?
You're like,
You're
you're not too much, you're just asking the wrong person.
Yeah, you're just asking the wrong person. That's usually after a relationship ends or after somebody's in a horrible relationship and they're not talking about their problems. It's a really loaded statement. But
Yeah.
the reality is that, there's always going to be two people that are different, and you have to negotiate those differences, and you have to find a way to meet in the middle in one way or another. You have to respect everybody's needs and wishes. And it becomes a problem when people are really rigid and can't, and are really inflexible and can't kind of navigate managing those differences. And then they blame the other person, and then they withdraw, and then the other person, and it becomes a whole mess. Um, mm, so yeah, the whole like wrong person, too much, too little. Again, that's usually coming in from an evaluation after a relationship has ended or when it's dysfunctional. But the reality is that it's super complex. There's really big relational dynamics and attachment issues that are coming up that are often being overlooked. And so if you want to make a relationship work, you have to understand what those dynamics are before just being like, oh, it's just the wrong person with somebody else. It would fit better, which could be true. But oftentimes the same shit comes up no matter who you're with, unless you face it and deal with it. That's not to say that everybody's right for everybody, or that every relationship is workable. It's just to say that I think before we make these conclusions, it's like it's the wrong person. Um, we should think a little bit deeper on what that means.
Yeah. I'm so curious, like, and I don't like, again, I don't have an answer, and I don't know if you will, but I am curious, as we enter relationships, and I'm thinking for myself, like I'm in a long-term relationship, but I never watched a relationship. So my mom was single, my grandmother was single. So like I never watched a long-term romantic relationship. And I'm in one for now 10 years. And some of the things that always comes up for us is like, oh, we've never seen this done. And so like how much of when we get into conflict is something that is workable, but we just haven't seen it worked out before. And how much of it is, oh, this is actually something that we should actually, we can't fix, or like it's a different partner thing. Now, for us, we're like, we've been together 10 years. So at this point, it's just like whatever it is. But I'm curious as people are getting up there in time with their partners and they don't necessarily have um, a roadmap or a blueprint, how you can begin to discern what is what is your preference and what is like your trauma that just hasn't been healed?
Well, it's both.
Tell
So
me,
many of
tell
our
me.
preferences and our needs come from things we didn't get when we were kids. There's nothing that should be solved for. It's not a problem. Again, it's how you deal with it with your partner. And I think, we've gotten to this point where it's almost like we've over intellectualized relationships to the point where we're making them our problems worse. Um,
Mm,
when like what it comes down to it, you need to feel seen and loved by your partner. Seen, loved, and
right.
cared for, and the relationship needs to feel safe. So every relationship is going to have conflicts. Every relationship is going to have unsolvable things that you just keep coming back to this gridlock shit. Every single relationship. But the question isn't less about can you solve it? Is it, could it work? Is it different? It's more like can you show up for each other and be nice? Can you make sure the relationship has a safe foundation? Do you,
Mm,
f- can you love each other and show warmth when these conflicts do arise? Or do you yell and scream and treat each other like shit? Can you show up for each other when you're not in conflict? Are you warm, loving people when you're not in conflict? So there is this kind of foundation to draw upon when someone is doing something that is maybe hurts your feelings or that you don't like, or when your differences butt against each other. So it's not to say these things don't matter, but it's to say that I think everyone's focusing on the wrong things. You want to cultivate love and warmth and questions that make your partner feel seen and understood, and create this as a foundation for a relationship. So, like, whatever comes up, not that it doesn't matter, but that you can get through it together, um, because you have this foundation that feels loving and warm and connected. So you can fuck up all the time together and still feel like you're in it together, but fucking up.
yeah,
Um, so again, this kind of comes back to is it the wrong person or whatever? Like, again, if the relationship was unsafe, then yeah, it's the wrong person. With these conflicts, is the relationship safe? Can you be loving to each other when they come up? Can you be nice? Can you repair? I mean, that's one of the most important things. It doesn't really even matter at the end of the day what the issue is. Can you make up?
mm,
Can you have an inside joke and like laugh through your shit together? Can you lighten it up? So I think the focus has to be more on that, on these foundational things that, yes, I never saw. I mean, my parents' marriage was horrific. Um, but I know what the foundational things are, and I don't have to see them to know what they are, or to cultivate them. I know what it means to be warm towards somebody and how to love somebody and how to make sure they feel seen. And I'm an angel, and so I'm very skilled like that. Some people aren't. And if you're
yeah.
not, that's totally fine. Go learn. I mean, this stuff is skill based almost. So there's a lot there that you can do, that couples can do, that people can do on their own when they're not in a relationship, to cultivate these things to make sure they're developing safe relationships.
That I love that because I think that, before I got into this relationship, I there were so many lists about like what people had to do or like
It's
what I
so
needed,
crazy.
how much money they needed to make or what they needed to make me
Yeah.
do or feel, like they're all the lists. And then it was like, I don't know if these lists are actually helping. And to your point, like, are we making relationships more complicated with all of this extra as opposed to focusing on the foundation, which is, am I safe? Am I seen? Am I loved? How do we get through conflict? That's such an important and necessary reminder. I think especially as relationships continue to grow and ebb, and if you're getting further and further along, more stuff comes up. That's the other thing that kind of baffles me in this, like, we've been together 10 years. It's like, oh, there's always more things. There's always there's always something to
Yeah.
learn. There's always something to do. There's always a new thing. Like, it's never like one and done. It's never like, oh, we know each other and like now we have a routine and it's all solved. It's
No.
like there are always things that are gonna percolate, and how do we navigate and move through it?
Yeah. I mean, it's like health, physical health, individual health, mental health.
Yeah.
It's constantly changing. I don't even know if like, can you once you finally think or you're healthy, something happens. It's a constant balancing act.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I'm gonna ask you my last couple questions, that are
Yep.
so unrelated to everything, which is,
Okay.
what's one thing you're proud of, baby?
I'm proud of my book.
Yes! Fuck
I'm proud of who
yes.
I am.
Yes. What's one thing, you love about yourself?
His reaction was my dick. I'm empathic. I'm sweet. I'm caring. I'm warm. I'm a
Beautiful. What are
dick.
you and what what are you most proud of, baby?
Um, Most proud of. I just told you things I was
I'm sorry,
um
grateful for.
grateful
Grateful for.
for.
Yes.
I mean, I have this gratitude thing I do all the time now. It's everything from the sun to my dog to,
Yeah.
my legs and my lungs. So all of the things.
The sun, a dog, legs, lungs. I love it. Todd, thank you so much for chatting with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
This was so
It
much
was
fun.
really good to see you. I miss
It's
you.
great to see you. I
I'm
miss
glad we
you.
finally figured out a date that works for both of us.
Listen, we did it. We did it.
We did
I'll
it.
see you in New York this fall, baby.
Yeah. That'll be exciting.
Yes. We'll get drinks and kiki and catch up for real.
I have some.
All right. I love you, baby.
Bye.
Bye.
Love you. Bye bye.